Well, we got some good and breaking news this Monday here on Legal AF. At least for now, the United States Supreme Court cannot count to four. There are not four votes to accept the appeal to overturn same-sex marriage in America established 10 years ago in a case called Obergefell. Even though Clarence Thomas has been trying to get the four votes together, there was a rejection today on the long conference list that the Supreme Court uses without discussion, with no dissent or statement by anyone. It is just a rejection. Now, what does it mean? It means we got to get through one more long conference next week. If we get through that long conference, they are not going to take up this issue upon which hundreds of thousands of families and children rely. And that reliance is one of the reasons they are not going to, I don't believe, they're going to have the necessary votes. I mean, even Sam Alito has said as recently in the last year that he would not vote, in effect, to overturn Obergefell because of the reliance interest on the 825,000 or so same-sex married families in America and the 300,000 children that call them parents. Even, you have to read tea leaves with this Supreme Court. Even Amy Coney Barrett, in her book she was shilling this summer, said that because of the reliance interest of these people, she would not vote to take away things that are fundamental to marriage, even though she did vote to get rid of abortion as a constitutional right. I'm Michael Popok. Thanks for being here on Monday morning on Legal AF. Let's get down to the curious and disgusting case of Kim Davis. You may recall that 10 years ago, she was a Kentucky municipal or county clerk. Her job, among others, was to issue marriage licenses. She refused to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples, citing her religion. Well, then get out of the government position and go work in a church. That's my argument. She lost her case. She got fined $300,000. And now believing, the conservative groups believing they have a way to get the court to reconsider the Obergefell case from 10 years ago, establishing that constitutional right to marriage between same-sex couples, they decided to use the stalking horse of Kim Davis, probably one of the most disgusting plaintiffs you could possibly, in every way, you could possibly use, which I don't think helped their cause. But in any event, they decided, well, we're going to appeal. We're going to argue now with the conservative groups behind her that that same-sex marriage wasn't a constitutional right and shouldn't have been a constitutional right, and she shouldn't have been penalized for not issuing licenses about it. I'm not quite sure how that helps her, because at the time that she issued or refused to issue the licenses, it was a constitutional right. The fact that maybe in the future it gets removed, throwing the entire world upside down in America for same-sex couples, I don't know how that really helps her. But in any event, every week or 2 weeks, the Supreme Court meets during the term to discuss which cases they're going to take up in order for the Supreme Court to agree to an appeal, because not every appeal ends up at the Supreme Court. It's discretionary. You have to have 4 out of the 9 votes that are interested. She didn't have the 4 votes. Now, there's one more conference that's on the 14th of November. We'll have to hold our breath a little bit. I just don't think even on the 14th that they're going to, when they reconsider it one more time, that they're going to accept it. Because who are the 4 votes? Let's do it this way. We know it's not Ketanji Brown Jackson, Sotomayor, and Kagan. As I said at the top of the hot take, Amy Coney Barrett in her book said there's too much reliance interests on this, and she would not vote, apparently, to take away that constitutional right given 10 years ago. That's 4 votes against. Even Alito, who's MAGA right, said because of reliance interests, he would not vote for it. That's 5. That would mean that Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and that's 6, because it's let me do my math again. Amy Coney Barrett, I think, is over there. Ketanji Brown Jackson, Kagan, and Sotomayor. Alito has said that he's not going to. That leaves 4 left: Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, Justice Roberts, and Thomas. They'd all have to vote in order to bring that up on an appeal. And then they'd have to find the fifth vote. Four to be heard, 5 to decide to overturn this 10-year-old constitutional right. I just don't see Roberts doing it, and I'm not even sure Gorsuch would do it. So there probably was only a couple of votes in favor, and everybody was a coward, because even if you were in favor, like we know Thomas was, because he wrote about it in his concurrence in Obergefell 10 years ago. I'm going to read it to you in a minute. He's been calling for the last 10 years to try to get his 5 votes. None of them wrote a statement. None of them wrote a dissent. None of them wrote a position paper. They just didn't accept it. Now, I think next week would be the week they'd have to write something. Here's what Clarence Thomas said 10 years ago that was always concerning to people, fair-minded people. He said, the court, this is in his concurrence, he went out of his way to call out Obergefell. The court today declines to disturb substantive due process jurisprudence generally, or the doctrine's application in other specific contexts, like Griswold v. Connecticut, a married person's right to obtain contraception, Lawrence versus Texas, the right to engage in private consensual sexual acts, and Obergefell versus Hodges, the right to same-sex marriage, are not at issue. But he's calling for it to be an issue. So that's the good news. I wanted to get it to you right here on Legal AF. Kim Davis is not going to be the one that's going to overturn same-sex marriage. And because the issue came up through her, there was enough comments made by people like Amy Coney Barrett and even Alito that signaled they are not in favor of it, despite, I'm sure, a tremendous amount of lobbying that's going on to get them to flip by the MAGA right. But I just don't see it happening. We have one more conference next week on the 14th. If it's not accepted, then it's toast. And it never will be. Now, it doesn't mean that under other circumstances, with a better plaintiff than Kim Davis, would they ever reconsider it? They could. I just don't think there's the political will to take on same-sex marriage. Having destroyed the constitutional right that was present for 50 years in abortion, I don't think they're going to do it on same-sex marriage. And they can argue for themselves, well, abortion was different because there's really no reliance interests, because, we're going to make the ruling and then the states are going to do what they're going to do. And it's not like you base your life on your right to an abortion, whereas you base your life on who you're going to marry and the children you're going to have. I mean, the numbers, I think, also tell the same tale. 2/3 of America in polling support same-sex marriage. I mean, I was actually surprised the number was lower. It was as low as it was. I thought it, just a little bit under 1 million couples in a sea of 300 million Americans are in same-sex marriages. Part of it is the problem with the states that they may live in. But 300,000 children is a lot of children, and 823,000 people is a lot of people, or a lot of marriages. That's 1.6 million people. And it shouldn't turn on how many people. I just was questioning. I thought it was larger than that. I thought the number was larger than that. But I'm glad everybody's here. I'm glad we had some good news to talk about. We got another hot take I'm going to do about some good news about the SNAP payments, whether the government opens up in the next 24 to 48 hours and they fully fund SNAP, the anti-poverty and food stamp program, or not. There's some good news coming out of the First Circuit. Wait for my next hot take on that. So until my next report, hit the free subscribe button. We had a great week and weekend. We added over 25,000 people have joined Legal AF's community. We're well on our way. We're at 926,000. 1 million is our number. We're going to try to hit it. I don't know, maybe Thanksgiving, just before Christmas. All would be very nice. And to come over to Legal AF Substack and help us continue to grow that pro-democracy channel as well. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popak. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.